When you think of The Shining, what flashes into your mind first? Kubrick's film, The Twins, the elevator of blood, Jack Nicholson's frozen grin. It's iconic, it's terrifying, and it's not the real horror. Because buried inside Stephen King's original novel is an interpretation far darker than any ghost, any hallway, any haunted hotel. And once you see it, The Shining never feels the same again. So let's just start with this big question, one that kind of reframes the entire thing. What if The Shining isn't really about ghosts? I mean, what if the Overlook Hotel isn't haunted by spirits, but by something far more common and way more real? What if the true horror was already packed in the car with the Torrance family before they ever even started up that mountain road? So here's how we're gonna break this down. First, we're gonna challenge the whole idea of the supernatural stuff. Then we'll get into what feels like the author's confession, or at least Jack's. After that, we'll talk about the real haunting. We'll look at how easy it is to misread the horror in this book. And finally, we'll try to figure out, why is this story an unbreaking with cycle? Why does it still get under our skin so much? Okay, let's dive right in. Our first step is challenging the ghosts. We're going to try and look past the moving hedge animals and the lady in room 217 for a minute, and see if we can find the human story at the center of all this. And this is really the core argument, the thesis, if you will. The story's real horror isn't what's lurking in the Overlook. It's what's been lurking inside Jack Torrance for his entire life. See, The Shining isn't a story about a haunted place, it's a story about a haunted man. The Overlook doesn't create a monster, it just provides the perfect isolated stage and cuts all the safety nets. The real ghost's addiction rage. They were Jack's travel companions all along. Alright, section 2, the author's confession. Because the book itself, it kind of reads like a legal case against Jack Torrance, laying out all the evidence. It tells us everything we need to know about his downfall. And it all starts way before he takes that caretaker job. Listen to this line right from the book. He and Al Shockley had been alcoholics. They had sought each other out to prefer drowning together. Wow, that wording is so active, isn't it? This isn't something that just happens to Jack. His alcoholism is a core part of his identity. It's not a symptom of being at the Overlook. It's a pre-existing condition. And then you get this metaphor, which is just perfect. There was a broken switch somewhere inside. This gets right to the heart of Jack's battle. He doesn't see his temper as a series of choices. He sees it as a mechanical failure, like a circuit breaker. That shot, it shows this profound sense of powerlessness, like he's just along for the ride. This is a man already losing the war with himself, and his problems are definitely not just internal. The book gives us a literal rap sheet on him. We're talking numerous fights going back to grammar school, he used football as a safety valve for his temper, he assaulted a student, and he broke his own son's arm. Let's just be really clear here. This is not a good man corrupted by evil spirits. The monster we meet at the end of the book was always there, just waiting for the right circumstances. So this brings us to a really crucial question about what's actually going on. If Jack is already this haunted, what's the Overlook's role in all of this? Is it the source of the evil, or is it just an amplifier? I think this comparison says it all. On the left, you've got the classic hotel horrors. Dalpert Grady room 217, mob hits, hedge animals, creepy stuff. But look at the Wright family's horrors. Jack's alcoholism and temper being totally broke, and his career being a failure. Wendy's constant fear of her husband, Danny's trauma. I mean, which list is actually scarier? The book argues pretty loudly that the horrors on the right are the real engine of the story. The ghosts are just metaphors for all that darkness. And this thought from Danny is maybe one of the most important lines in the whole book. The wording is so specific. It makes human monsters. It doesn't create them out of nothing. It takes the raw materials of human weakness, Jack's anger, his booze problem, and it puts them in the perfect isolated environment to transform into something monstrous. And the funny thing is, the book itself gives us a perfectly rational psychological explanation for everything. Early on, the hotel manager literally brings up cabin fever. He defines it for us a reaction to being cooped up that can cause hallucinations and violence. It's almost like the author's handing us a non-supernatural key to the whole story, saying, hey, the pressure cooker of this place is more than enough to explain what happens next. And this is where it's so easy to misread the novel. If we get too focused on the ghosts and the spooky topiary, we can actually miss the much deeper and much more tragic human story that's unfolding. Just think about that scrapbook Jack finds. What does he discover? Ancient curses, demonic entities. Nope. He finds a history of human darkness, mobsters, corruption, murder scandals. The evil of the Overlook isn't some ancient supernatural thing. It's grounded in the dirty reality of the 20th century. It's the residue of human greed and violence. You know Danny, the kid with the shining? He seems to get this distinction better than anyone. For him, the fight between his parents, that was a real thing. The ghosts, the visions, just like pictures in a book. They're scary for sure, but they don't have the same substance as his family's very real drama. It tells us that the real stakes, the real danger, have always been inside the family itself. And there's this really subtle but brilliant thing the novel does with the play Jack is trying to write. As the story goes on, Jack starts hating his own hero, and get this, starts sympathizing with the villain. This isn't the hotel possessing him. This is a window into his own psychological breakdown. He's rewriting his own story in his head, casting himself as the villain long before he ever picks up that rogue mountain. So if the horror isn't really a haunted hotel, why is this story still so powerful? Why does it stick with us? I think it's because it taps into this timeless, terrifyingly real fear. The idea of inherited trauma. The idea of an unbreakable cycle of abuse. This line about Jack's own abusive father is just devastating. It captures the heartbreaking messiness of these cycles. It's not simple hate. It's this twisted, painful love that ties a kid to an abusive parent. And it's what makes the pattern so hard to escape. Jack isn't just a monster, he's also a victim. And that's a huge part of the tragedy. You can literally draw a straight line through the generations here. In the past, Jack's father beats him. In the present, before the hotel, Jack breaks his son, Danny's arm. Then, at the hotel, he dreams of his dead father telling him to discipline Danny. The Overlook doesn't create this pattern. The book says it manages Jack, pushing him to complete a cycle that started a generation before him. It's a terrifyingly straight line. So in the end, the supernatural stuff in the novel is really a powerful metaphor for something all too real. The true terror isn't some ghost in a hallway. It's the ghost of a father's rage, the ghost of alcoholism, the specter of abuse that gets passed down, haunting a family from the inside. And that's a kind of terror that doesn't just go away when you close the book. Which leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling question. Is the Overlook Hotel a uniquely evil place? Or is it just an empty, isolated space that reveals what's already there? Maybe the most terrifying idea in The Shining isn't the ghosts in the halls at all, but the thought that any family, under enough pressure, cut off from the rest of the world, might start to create its own monsters. And that the real horror isn't something that moves in the dark, but something that quietly wakes up inside us. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button. It really helps the channel. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into books and stories like this. And let me know in the comments what you think The Shining is really about, and which book you want us to explore next.